Imagine walking into a party to find that everyone is having a great time, but no one seems to be noticing you. We all have had that experience where we feel left out, where we feel frustrated, unwelcomed. But for some of us, such experiences are more common than for others. Today, I'm going to talk about why some of the children in educational institutions feel left out, on the edges, and how we can make sure that we create institutions that work for all the students. My name is Tanushri Tyagi, and that's me at 4 or 5 years old. As a child, I used to feel left out a lot in my school. While I was experiencing social anxiety, I saw a lot of children experiencing similar kind of struggles. They used to get punished, they used to get reprimanded, and rather severely for things like not being able to finish homework, not being able to memorize spellings, for being distracted in the classroom. Some of the images still stay in my head, and that is my drive. For as far long as I can remember, I have always wanted to work in schools to change that, to change how children are treated, how children who are not able to fit in, they are treated in schools. Fortunately today, I work as a student counselor and in social impact. These two are my greatest passions, and I'm lucky to be working in a field, in a job which gives me this opportunity. I work with Oak Ridge International School in Bangalore, and it has been a great journey for me because I have been able to bring together two of my passions, and that journey I'm going to present today. As student counselor, I meet a lot of children who are struggling with socio-emotional needs. They might be struggling with academic struggles. They might not be able to meet the grade level expectations, or they might get left out when the teams are picked on the ground. They might have difficulty making friends, or in general, might be feeling disengaged from the school. Now, one of the reasons this might be happening is neurodiversity. Neurodiversity, we'll come to what that is. I'll pause for a moment, and I'll request you, if there's a person sitting next to you, please turn to that person and shake hand with that person. Thank you. Now, take a moment to acknowledge that the person sitting next to you is different from you neurologically. All the people sitting in this room are neurologically diverse. No two people have the brains which work exactly same. But for the purpose of this presentation, and in general, sometimes we refer the term neurodivergence to refer to conditions such as autism spectrum disorder, attention deficit disorder, learning disability, intellectual deficit. But I want you to keep in mind, even when we are using this term just to refer to these children who might have more challenges, we still are understanding ourselves also as being different neurologically. So we are all neurologically diverse. Now, neurodiversity is rooted in brain, okay? And this is a difference which should not create a divide in a room. We should not be categorizing children into normal, abnormal. Rather, we should be expecting this difference. How we build our educational institutions should be based on this assumption, how we view children. How do we view the differences? Do we expect them? Do we view them as problems? Now, if you look at the statistics, okay, we see that somewhere between 1 in 8 to as high as maybe 1 in 5 children in schools, in any classroom, is neurodivergent. But when we are designing our buildings, when we are designing our classrooms, when we are designing our curriculum, we are usually looking at the ideal. We are thinking of an average student. And what happens? We leave out a few students who start feeling disengaged. And it's not a surprise that Children with ADHD, when they go for higher education, the dropout rate from higher education is very high, maybe as high as 9 to 10%. When I started practicing as a student counselor about 1.5 decades back, I got a nice fancy room. And I used to apply behavioral therapy or cognitive behavior therapy for the students to support the students who used to come to me. That involves looking at the behavior, understanding what is the root cause of that behavior, why is that behavior a problem behavior in the setting of the school. Now, what is the function of that behavior? Is that behavior serving a problem, serving a purpose? For example, attention seeking. But that therapy, that might be effective, okay? But when we look at the figures of neurodivergent population, when it's used with neurodivergent population, the picture might be slightly different. Now the research has shown, if you can go back to the last slide, the research has shown that neurodivergent population, okay, they display a lot of behavior for which our educational organizations are not ready. So some of these behaviors are seen as problem behaviors because they are expected to fit in. And when, as part of all these support systems, we try to teach them behaviors to mimic more of neurotypical or the normal behavior, it results in many damaging results. For one, it can lead to anxiety, it can lead to depression, it can lead to self-doubt, exhaustion, trying to keep up with that mask, and even suicidality. So it's not that the therapy is wrong, but it's how and why we are using it and how we are putting it in the whole context of organization. Now, Sir Ken Robinson, many of you might be aware, he is a pioneer educator who has inspired the whole generation of teachers and educators. He said that what we need in the education setup is not reformation. What we need is a transformation. We have to move away from the industrial model, which views children as categories, falling in categories, to a more agricultural model maybe, and think like a farmer who prepares the conditions so that a seed can turn into a plant. And that is what we are aiming for. We are aiming to create schools where the educators, the people who are interacting with children, view their role as providing this support. And what will result will be a neuro-affirming education setup, hopefully. Now, for what is a neuro-affirming system? Neuro-affirming system, for one, doesn't categorize anyone into normal, abnormal. We expect that children are going to come in all shapes and sizes. They are going to have differences with regard to how they think, with regard to how they learn. And we create systems to accommodate that. So I have taken some of the practices which I have tested, and I have come up with an acronym for the ease of remembering and communication as BRAVE. The first one is creating belongingness. Now, belongingness is like preparing the soil. When you start planting a seed, you have to prepare the soil. You have to check how's the quality. The same is with creating positive relationship. That is a first step. But we have to keep in mind, we think that child is at the center of the classroom, but there is another person, and that is a teacher. So belongingness has to begin with the teacher, because teacher is the one who is going to carry all the weight of all the children, to build relationship with them, to build those conditions with them. So we have to keep them in mind. But at the same time, we have to also keep in mind the other stakeholders, like parents, like the other staff members, community. All have to be involved, because that's going to transfer to how the child is going to feel about this school. R is for respect for personal identity. Now, we have to give a choice. We have to empower the child to decide how they want to be identified. Sometimes, because there is a stigma attached to getting diagnosis, we don't want to, as parents maybe, we don't want to go to get diagnosis done for the child. Sometimes we as adults or individuals, we realize something is not working right, but still we resist diagnosis. So I think once we overcome that barrier, once we are able to understand our brain, once we are able to understand what works for me, that gives us power. And same is for the child. Once they know that, okay, this is how my brain works, this is what's going to work for me, what's not going to work for me, they can make choice how they want to be identified. There is a lot of debate around how should we address, but a child gets to decide. They can say, I am autistic, or I have autism. We have to be sensitive around the language, but we have to also take it in the stride and see what is working. Defining identity is also super important because now the teacher knows what is going to work for the child, what strategies to bring in to support the child, what are the resources which are required, what are the barriers in the environment that needs to be removed. Now, every one of us has certain interests. All of us have our own strengths. And same is for children who have neurodivergence. Some might have a very good critical ability. Some might be very funny. Some might be very good at art. Some might be very good at sports, mathematics, etc. Now, it's our role as a teacher to support a child, because we know, the child knows what I like, to support the child by giving them opportunity to develop that interest, to let them flourish that interest so that their strength becomes even more stronger. And that is the engagement of the child to the school. If we design our lessons keeping in mind what works for this child, oh, this child loves puzzles, this child really loves music, right? Like a child really loved birds, okay? He was really disengaged. When the father told, okay, he's really interested, we tried to bring that in. And that worked for him. That created an engagement for the child in the classroom. Next is V for versatile design. Our designs should be flexible enough to accommodate the needs of all. It doesn't mean that we design individually for each and every one. It means that we have to design in a manner that it works for everyone. If you walk into a shoe shop and you see that the only size available in the shoe shop is 8, how will you feel? And that is how a lot of children feel. That is how a lot of children who enter a classroom, they feel that this doesn't fit my needs. A good example is the figure of ramp. Now, ramp can be used by all, irrespective of the mobility needs of the individual. And that's an example of universal design. Universal design for learning was created by CAST. To support the educators, it gives us guidelines how to create curriculum which works for all, which makes learning accessible for all the learners, which makes learning engaging for all the learners. And what it does is provides a few guidelines, some principles. First is multiple means of engagement. How to motivate the child, and like we discussed, the strengths will come here. How to create curiosity in the child, how to bring different materials to bring that energy. Then multiple means of representation. How do we represent anything through audio material, video material, hands-on learning, taking them out of the classroom, different ways. And finally, very importantly, how do they express their learning? So if a child has learning disability, she can choose, instead of filling out the worksheet, which will not be a true reflection of her learning, she can choose to create a working model. Or she can choose to create a work of art. Universal design talks about accommodating the needs first of all, of the person who is at the edge. Think of them, and you design that. So we have a lot of learners who have high sensitivity, sensory sensitivity needs. So what do we do about that? We have to think, when the lunch break happens, they're really uncomfortable. When the PE period happens, sports period happens, they're really uncomfortable. So we provide them nooks where they can sit, there is a noise control. If you have been to MG Road metro station, you might have seen something like this. This is an example, again, of universal design. It integrates ramp and stairs, and it works for almost everyone. Now, last but not the least, empower. And this is really close to me, really close to my heart. Empower the students by promoting student-led social impact projects. Now, when we provide that opportunity, when we create that scope in our curriculum, we see that it meets the first requirement of UDL, the student agency. The student gets to choose what they want to do. A lot like this current event, where the students are planning everything. And that meets a lot of needs. Research has shown that students who engage in self-driven social impact projects, they have higher empathy. And there are benefits even for the organization. There's a better positive environment. There is more connect within the students, amongst the students, within the community. I'll give you a few examples. One of my students was really interested in computer science, and he was much advanced than the scope provided by his curriculum. So what he did is, he identified need in his community. He saw that PU colleges, they don't have the computers. He said, I can design Raspberry Pi computers. And he created a team of volunteers. They together did fundraisers. They got the parts. They designed the Raspberry Pi computers. And soon, these were delivered. They went back to the school. They realized there's no teacher, so they kept going back and took classes. Another example is another student who used to volunteer at a cancer hospice. When we got to know about it, we took all the students. It was a moving experience with them. And what they realized is that they want to take it forward with Relay for Life. And I'm very proud to say this year we had the second Relay for Life led by students. So we have to embed all these strategies into a culture. None of these strategies or other effective strategies, they are going to work unless they are embedded in a culture rooted in the values of respect, engagement, empathy. Thank you.